Oh, good morning, everyone. I am so sorry for those of you who were in the 1025 section and we were having some technical difficulty with the microphone. I have a Surface Pro and a few of us are struggling a little bit with this particular machine. It doesn't want to use the mic consistently. Sometimes when we test it, it's fine, and then other times it's not. So I'm just going to switch machines, which will be fine in the future. But for right now, what I want us to do is just go through what is expected this week. And then just for fun, because I enjoy them so much, I wanted to share just a few of my favorite poems with you. So let's take a look at the homework first, because that's the most important thing. So if you go to your weekly folders, I forgot to make it student view, I'm sorry. Let's see here. So let's go to our weekly folders again. If we go into week 2, you'll see that you have a journal due. Journals are typically pretty informal. Now, I do expect you to proofread closely and follow your rules as much as you can. But with this particular journal, I want you to have a good time. I want to see what your writing is like, but I'm going to give you a chance, instead of writing an essay, to write fiction. So you can either make it up or you can do creative nonfiction where you tell the truth, but you take some creative license with it. So for fun, I want you to open a drawer in your house and look through the objects and come up with a story about why they're there and what they're for. Or your closet or an old shoebox that might bring up memories. You might come across a picture that tells a story about a particular part of your life. Or if you don't want to do that, you can go through your Facebook feed, which is something I do quite a bit. I look back over the last 3 or 4 years and I see the story of how I've changed or how a particular relationship has developed or how a child has grown or how we've added someone to the family, maybe through marriage. Or maybe there was one particular event that was really special that I want to focus on, or maybe not special. It's really up to you, and I'd like for you to have fun. We are going to share these with each other so we get a chance to get to know each other better, and we build a little bit of what we call a learning community where you get to know the people you're working with. So once you write your story, which will be about a page to 2 pages typed, double-spaced, 12-point font times New Roman in Word, once you're finished with that, then you would come back and you would take a look at some reflection questions. This is just to give you a chance to think about your writing. So you would ask yourself, okay, how does each piece of the puzzle, the objects that I found in my shoebox or in my drawer or on Facebook, how does each piece reveal a little bit about the story? So just tell me how you came up with the story. What is the generation or the origin of the story? And then I want you to think about this question. Is the entire picture ever really completely realized or knowable? So is it possible for you to tell me the whole story? Because you only have your own perspective, right, for the most part, or the perspective of other people who are also filtering all the information through their own set of beliefs and values and their point of view. So I'm hoping that this is helpful. And then once we get the stories up, I'd like for you to go in and read each other's stories and maybe comment. This is just to help replace class discussion and to give me a chance to look at some of your writing so that I can see really the basic things like, do you have an understanding of punctuation, comma usage rules, capitalization, spelling, sentence structure, verb tense agreements, things of that nature, things that we'll talk about a little bit later on as we go through the course. But this is just to give me basically a writing sample and hopefully to give you a fun way to do that. And it is due on Sunday by 11:59 p.m., which is pretty standard for us. Most of the things we do are going to be like that. So let's see. All right, so to actually post your journal, you have to click on the blue link and then create journal entry right here. So if you click create journal entry, then you give your journal a title, and then you can copy and paste it in here. But then I would also like for you to browse your files and attach the Word document that you originally used, and then hit post entry. And that will send it to me to be graded. Okay? So that's all on this part of things. So let me pull up the poems that I wanted to share with you. My favorite one in terms of just classic poetry is one by Anne Bradstreet. And this is Anne Bradstreet. She was actually, right here, she was actually a Puritan, and she was born in England. And she came over with her husband Simon when the U.S. was still colonized. So it was before we had the United States. And she moved to what's now Massachusetts. And her husband was involved in politics. So that meant that he had to travel a lot. And when you traveled a lot in the 1600s, what that meant is that you would either use your feet, use a horse, or use a boat. And because they lived near the ocean, he would travel a lot by boat. So in her poetry, you'll hear her referencing the stars and the zodiac, and that's because that's how you would navigate during this time before all the modern technology that we have now. Simon and Anne were unique. Even though they were Puritans and they were supposed to love God above everything, and she did, according to what we have of her poetry, she actually really, truly loved her husband. And in English, we only have one word for love. But in other languages, there are several words. And so one word is eros, which means erotic love. And that's the kind of love she had for her husband. And you can hear that in the poetry. Now, she writes about a lot of things. She writes about writing. She writes about being a mother. She writes about death because, unfortunately, life was very hard in the 1600s, and she loses a lot of her children in childhood, although they have very famous offspring who've gone on to do quite wonderful things if you're ever interested in looking up Anne and Simon Bradstreet. But she wrote one particular poem to her husband while he was gone for work. And you have to remember that, again, life was very harsh. I used to live in Massachusetts. I moved there in January of 2000, and there was snow on the ground pretty much until May. It's very, very cold, very, very harsh. The wind cuts through you like a knife because it's coming off of the ocean. It's just very hard. And she wouldn't have had things like a heat pump or anything to keep her warm. She would have had to get her own food. She would have had to maintain every aspect of the household while he was away. It's even hard for me to imagine what her life must have been like, even though she was rather privileged in terms of her upbringing. Let me see. Let me see if we have the poem. If we don't have it, I have it memorized. Yes. Okay, so this one is called A Letter to Her Husband Absent Upon Public Employment. Now, Anne didn't title it that. Usually, if you don't have a title, you would use the first line of the poem. But what happened in this case is that a publisher gave it this title to give it some context so that you would know why she was writing. Okay, so here we go. She says, My head, mine heart, mine eyes, my life, nay, more, my joy, my magazine of earthly store. If two be one, as surely thou and I, how stayest thou there whilst I at Ipswich lie? So many steps had from the heart to sever, if but a neck soon should we be together. I, like the earth this season, mourn in black, my sun is gone so far in zodiac, whom whilst I joyed, nor storms nor frost I felt, his warmth such frigid colds did cause to melt. My chilled limbs, now numbed, lie forlorn. Return, return, sweet soul from Capricorn. In this dead time, alas, what can I more than view those fruits which through thy heat I bore, which sweet contentment yield me for a space, true living pictures of their Father's face. O strange effect, now thou art southward gone, I weary grow the tedious day so long. But when thou northward to me shalt return, I wish my sun may never set but burn within the cancer of my glowing breast, the welcome house of him my dearest guest. Wherever ever stay, and go not thence, till nature's sad decree has called thee hence. Flesh of thy flesh, bone of thy bone, I here, thou there, yet both but one. So to me, this is a beautiful love letter. And in some ways, it's a pretty dramatic love letter. So let me break it down for you a little bit, what she says. She says, I love you more than everything and I have in the world, her earthly store, her magazine, like you would store everything that you need for the winter in your magazine, or you store bullets in a magazine if you know that language. So she says, everything, mine eyes, mine heart, mine head, my life, no, more than that. She asked him a question in the next two lines. She says, if two be one, as surely thou and I, how stayest thou there? How can you stay away from me, whilst I at Ipswich lie? And Ipswich is the name of the town that she's in. She says, I would kill myself to be with you, which I don't think she's literal here, but we've all been kind of, at some point most likely, lovesick. And she says, so many steps head from the heart to sever, if but a neck, soon shall we be together. So she's dramatic. She says, I like the earth this season mourn in black. So what season does the earth mourn in black? Well, unfortunately, we're getting ready to go into it here in the next few months, and it's wintertime. She says, my sun, S-U-N, like the sun in the sky, is gone so far in zodiac. So she's talking about how far he is away from her in the chart. But she calls him her sun, S-U-N. And the sun does a lot of things. The sun gives life, light, warmth. So if there is no sun, there is no life. And he is her husband, so he literally gives life to her. And she says, while you were here, whilst I joyed, nor storms nor frost I felt. I was never cold. It was never scary. She says, your warmth, such frigid colds did cause to melt. So she's saying, I always felt so safe and warm when you were here. But now she says, I'm cold. My chilled limbs, now numbed, lie forlorn. Then she begs him to come home. She says, return, return, sweet soul from Capricorn. And sol, S-O-L, if you took high school Spanish, means sun again. And so again, we've got that idea that he is what keeps her alive. But soul, S-O-L, sounds like soul, S-O-U-L, which is also your spirit. So that word choice is very deliberate for her. She asked him a question again. She says, in this dead time, what else can I more? What can I do? Then view those fruits which through thy heat I bore. Well, if you're a parent, and I know some of you are, you know that the fruit you bear through heat is a child or children. She says, what else am I supposed to do but look at them? She says, they give me peace for a minute, sweet contentment yield me for a space. And they do that because they look like him. She says, true living pictures of their father's face. And if you've ever been around a child who resembles someone you love, then you know what she means. And she doesn't have all the stuff we have. Like, she can't hop on FaceTime or send a Snapchat or an Instagram or look at Facebook. If you wanted a photo during this time, you would have had to pay, actually not a photo, but if you wanted an image, you would have had to pay an artist. For her, she looks to them to see him. And she says, it's so weird. Oh, strange effect. She said, it's so weird. Now thou art southward gone. Now that you're gone, she says, I grow so tired. The day is so long. And then she says, when you come home, don't ever leave again. She says, I wish my sun may never set but burn within the cancer of my glowing breast, the welcome house of him, my dearest guest. Now, her dearest guest is God. That's what she's saying there. But she wants him to come home and stay in the same place. Her husband, I mean. And then she says, wherever ever stay and go not. She says, wherever I am, so should you be. And she's kind of reminding him of wedding vows here. And she says, till nature's sad decree shall call thee hence. Well, we all know, because we're human and organic beings, that at some point we will die. And that's what she's saying. She's saying, till nature's sad decree, which is death, shall call thee hence. So she's saying till death do us part at this point. And she goes on to say, flesh of thy flesh, bone of thy bone, I hear thou there yet both but one. And I think it's kind of funny because in 2020, what I would say is, hey, buddy, we took vows. And that's kind of what she's saying. But she really loves him and she really misses him and she